In 1932, the Australian military deployed elite soldiers armed with machine guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition. Their enemy wasn't a foreign army, it wasn't rebels. It was a flock of flightless, 6-foot-tall birds. And the most humiliating part? The birds won. This is the completely insane, true story of the Great Emu War. It all started after World War I. The Australian government gave thousands of returning veterans plots of land in the West to farm wheat. But by 1932, the Great Depression hit. Wheat prices crashed, and a massive drought struck the outback. That's when 20,000 emus arrived. Desperate for water, the emus tore down farming fences and completely devoured the crops. Major G.P.W. Meredith led the military operation with 2 Lewis guns and 10,000 bullets. The soldiers expected an easy target, but they vastly underestimated their opponent. Emus can sprint at 35 miles per hour. When the machine guns opened fire, the emus didn't panic. They broke apart into tiny guerrilla units, scattering in all directions. During one ambush at a watering hole, the soldiers lined up over 1,000 emus. They pulled the trigger, and the gun jammed after killing just 12 birds. The soldiers even tried mounting a machine gun to the back of a truck, but the terrain was too rough to aim, and the emus easily outran the vehicles. The lead officer famously stated that the emus could face machine guns with the invulnerability of tanks. After a month of absolute chaos and public embarrassment, the military surrendered. They had fired thousands of rounds of ammunition, but left the emu population completely thriving. The media ridiculed the government, stating that the emus had won every single round. Nature won, the army lost, and the emus kept their territory. But the story didn't actually end with the army's retreat. In fact, the aftermath of the Great Emu War is where things get even more ridiculous. You see, the emus didn't just win the war, they kept invading. Over the next 2 decades, as the drought continued to cycle, the emus marched back onto the wheat fields. And who did the desperate farmers call? The military, of course. In 1934, 1943, and again in 1948, farmers practically begged the Australian government to redeploy the troops and the machine guns. But the government had learned its lesson. Having been humiliated on the global stage once, they flatly refused every single request. They realized that sending the army to fight birds was like using a sledgehammer to swat a fly. If the fly could run 35 miles per hour and take a bullet like a tank. Instead, Australia had to change its entire strategy. They turned to defensive engineering. The government funded the construction of thousands of miles of massive, reinforced emu-proof fencing. They also put a bounty system in place, offering cash rewards for every emu culled. Ironically, it was the local farmers themselves, armed with regular hunting rifles rather than heavy military artillery, who finally managed to keep the populations in check. Today, the Great Emu War stands as a legendary internet meme, but it's also a fascinating case study in human hubris. It proved that no matter how advanced our technology, how powerful our weapons, or how strategic our minds, you should never underestimate Mother Nature, especially when she's 6 feet tall, completely fearless, and packing an attitude. The Australian army packed up and moved on. The veterans eventually adapted. But the emus, they're still out there in the outback, completely thriving and still undefeated.